Hi, everybody. My name is Matt Weatherly. I am from Public Sector Personnel Consultants. Our firm has been selected to assist the city with a classification and compensation study. We wanted to highlight your opportunities to participate in this study and give you a little bit of homework. I'll try to keep the video as brief as possible, but the overall study over the next maybe 4 to 6 months will help the city when it comes to budget planning for salaries and benefits. We'll provide you with a brief background of our firm. We will highlight your opportunities to participate and a little bit of what to expect and what not to expect. And then I have screenshots of a position analysis questionnaire. You will have an opportunity to fill out one of these questionnaires either on your own or as part of a group. So if you want to work with coworkers on these documents, we're just trying to review job descriptions and make sure that when we do a salary survey, we do job comparisons based on your actual duties and not just based on your job title. So I'll talk about the two major phases of the study. Before I do, just brief background about our firm. This is all that we do, as our name suggests, public sector personnel consultants. We conduct about 40 to 50 studies every year throughout the United States, reviewing job descriptions, conducting salary surveys, designing salary plans, recommending pay grades for jobs, talking to city councils about how they budget for salaries and benefits. Not sure when the last time your city undertook a formal study. It is pretty common to do these, I would say, every 5 to 7 years. We've had a chance to work with just over 1,100 public employers throughout the United States. Texas represents about 1/3 of our project workload at any given time. We've had a chance to do multiple studies in Frisco, Plano. We're now working with Dallas, Fort Worth, Irving. We're on our third study in Waco, our fourth study in Killeen. All that qualifies us to do is ask good questions. What factors influence your city's ability to recruit and to retain staff? I like to look at it from the employee's perspective. Did you drive through 3 or 4 cities to get to work today? Who is it that the city is competing with, your city is competing with, to get you to work and to keep you at work? Those are the factors that go into an employer's decisions when it comes to pay and benefits. So we'll talk about kind of how our study might help inform that. We've had a chance to work with a lot of cities around the Metroplex, but every one of them is a little bit different. We just wrapped up Ennis, Mansfield, Burleson. Your particular study has about 80 different jobs included in it. So we've worked with cities of all size. But we want to make sure that we are reviewing your job description and giving you an opportunity to present to us or at least discuss what belongs on your job description. Some highlights here. This is something that the city wants to do for you, not to you. Very important, and it's not meant to be wordplay, by any stretch. This is meant to be very transparent. It's meant to be a positive exercise. The last bullet on this slide is also very important. The study itself is typically not the means by which everybody receives a pay adjustment. Save the regular budget process. If you get a performance review or a cost of living adjustment or a general increase, or however you go about getting salary adjustments at all, that typically does not change drastically simply because a study is being done. This will take some time, but we do intend for the results of the study to inform any upcoming budget decisions. I would say that it is not uncommon for us to make sure that nobody is going backwards, as a result of the study. So we'd like to offer that, as a reassurance as well. Nor should you expect a windfall, right? Don't go out and buy a new truck because the city's doing a salary survey. But I will talk about the results of that salary survey and what might that look like for individual employees here in just a couple of slides. The intent also behind the study is for it to be bigger than just the one-time completion of the study in the next 4 to 6 months. Reviewing who you compare to, reviewing who the city competes with, reviewing your job descriptions. It's nice to be able to do that on a fairly regular basis, just to ensure that if you have an established pay philosophy, that you are aware of the market, you are aware of any difficulties in recruiting or in retaining, or if we have jobs that have higher turnover. So we like to bring data to that conversation, and as a third party, be very objective when we do that review. The classification portion is, I guess, what I will call phase one of the exercise. We'll break the project into two major phases. The first, position classification, is the review of jobs. There are about 80 different job titles or job descriptions, maybe a few more than that, in your system and in your files currently. Does that job title and does that job description accurately reflect the work that you perform? Our only marching order, anywhere, is to get it right, whether we're talking about jobs, we're talking about pay for individuals. But what I mean by that is, if we need to create some new jobs, we can. If we recommend that we merge a couple of jobs together, you might see that as a recommendation as well. But position classification is simply the review of jobs and job descriptions. We do a lot of studies where we're only afforded the opportunity to do a salary survey. We don't always get a chance to start where I believe we should most every time, and that is with you, an employee, reviewing your job description. Sometimes we get sent 100 job descriptions, and then 90 days later we have a survey, and 120 days later somebody can raise their hand and say, wait, that's not what I do. Great survey, but bad job description. So we're giving you the opportunity and encouraging you to review your job description. The position analysis questionnaire will take an hour or two to complete. It is not a writing contest. More doesn't always mean more or better. And you can absolutely work with your coworkers. Share the content and submit a group questionnaire. Share the content and submit an individual questionnaire. It kind of reinforces we are studying the job to begin with rather than individual. It is not a review of your performance. It is not a review of staffing levels. It is simply an opportunity for you to put eyes on your job description or tell us what you do when you're at work. So you'll see that in just a few slides. The salary survey, where it does get a little bit more interesting, we will be doing both a salary and a benefit survey. Typically, we're going to compare your city's pay plan, salary ranges, and job descriptions to like jobs, like job descriptions, and pay ranges afforded at other cities. Now, in this particular case, you might be competing for some jobs with the private sector, or you might be competing with the school district or the county or the state. We have not decided who the comparison agencies will be, but those public agencies, almost all of them are very transparent. They have to provide their data. They have job descriptions. They have pay plans. They have pay ranges. So 90% of our work that we'll be doing over the next several months is a paper exercise. You tell us what you do through the questionnaire. We pull job descriptions and organization charts from other cities and try to find like jobs to the extent possible. And we're going to basically build a survey database from scratch. We will compare pay range minimum, compare pay range midpoint, pay range maximum for as many jobs as possible. What that gives us is some insight into two things: how your jobs compare to the market, and if your current pay ranges are competitive. It also can inform any changes that might be warranted as a result of the review itself. A salary survey is generally intended to target and answer two questions. One, where are we, or how do we stack up? How do we compare? And are we competitive with those that we're competing with to attract and retain staff? The follow-up is, where do we want to be, or where do we need to be in order to recruit and in order to retain? Remember, I said there's about 80 different job descriptions, maybe a few more than that. If we survey every job, and we can't always survey every job, typically if it's been a couple of years since a survey has been done, if we survey 80 or 100 jobs, we might be more competitive for some jobs than others. We might have fallen behind market for our pay range for some positions, and perhaps by happy accident, even we're competitive for others. We let that, kind of inform the how do we look, right? That becomes anecdotal really quick. Where do we want to be might look like, can we be within 5% of market? Can we be at market average? Can we be within 10% of market? If we need to change pay ranges to be more competitive, that's still a paper exercise for a little while. But that process will be led by our firm very independently, very objectively. And then how we implement any change to those pay ranges will in part be informed by council approval and in part by budget. If we have some jobs at 80% of market or at 90% of market, and we have other jobs at 102% of market, fantastic. We have some jobs that are at market, but if we have some that have fallen behind, we want to have consistency. We want to recommend that all jobs have a similar relationship to market, even if that takes multiple years to implement changes and updates or upgrades to pay ranges. We'll be able to answer those key questions that I mentioned. We'll know as a result of the survey. We're also going to look at benefits. So we will know for health insurance contributions, certification pay, vacation, sick leave. How does our pay look? How do our benefits look? We will also be able to help inform or lead a conversation around where do we want to be. Maybe there are positions that are harder to fill and they stay vacant for a while. Maybe there are positions where we have higher turnover. We want to know about that. We want to learn about that and let this data help inform where do we need to be in order to be competitive. Again, limited to budget, council approval, but ideally, you take the survey results, you adopt a pay philosophy to get maybe closer to market for some jobs if they've fallen behind. If that takes multiple years, we can set you on that path. And then, right, and then would be, what does that mean for individuals? If your range needs to move, can we afford to move your salary as well? We don't want to cause compression by leaving everybody at the bottom of a pay range. If your pay range needs to come up, we can review where your salary is in that pay range. Certainly, if it falls below the minimum that we're recommending, we got to get you back into that plan. And if you're an employee with 5 or 10 years in your job, I don't know that I want you sitting at minimum, either. All of those are kind of inbounds as topics for us to cover as a result of the study, as well as how we might go about implementing any changes to pay ranges or pay scales. The position analysis questionnaire, or JAQ, PAQ, I think I have it as JAQ here. I'll change that real quick. This questionnaire will come out by email. We will have an opportunity to visit with some of you, perhaps in person when we visit with council, to provide an overview of the study. But pretty interchangeable terms here, PAQ, JAQ. This will take an hour or two to complete. I've got screenshots of that. You will have almost the entire month of November to work on those. Departments will have until mid-December to get those turned into HR. The questionnaire themselves is about 4 or 5 pages. It starts with a little bit of housekeeping, just so we can find you on an organization chart or when we review a budget and you tell us what your job title is, so we have an idea of who you report to. If we do have follow-up questions, if you want to put a phone number or an email address on there, just in case we want to reach out and ask some follow-up questions. This document is intended to inform job description writing. So it will follow a job description format. Summary statement defining the job, body of the job description, so listing out job duties, responsibilities, tasks, functions, minimum qualifications, so education, experience, knowledge, skills. The questionnaire is going to follow right through all of those. The bottom of page 1 really starts with a high-level question. And it might be the elevator speech. When somebody asks you what you do for a living, what do you tell them? Think for a moment about the services that are being provided in maybe the department that you work in. Is yours an outward-focusing department where you have direct contact with citizens, customers, developers? Maybe you're back of house supporting those that do have that frontline contact. Maybe both. But for a moment, think very high level about who your customers are, what services are being provided, and what that kind of overall purpose of your position is. It's not a trick question, but 2 or 3 sentences, kind of high level. Disclaimer here. Some of you might wear multiple hats. What I mean by that is, and I'll totally make this up, let's say that you are an equipment operator, but you also do some welding. Half the time you're out in the field operating a piece of equipment, but half the time you're back in the shop or the garage and you're welding on a piece of heavy equipment. Those are oftentimes 2 different jobs out in the market. Depending on those comparison agencies, they might have one person that just operates equipment and 1 or 2 other people that just do welding. If we need to compare your job to more than one job, this will be the way that we will find out about that. You don't have to fill out 2 questionnaires, but if you want to draw a line down the middle and say, hey, job number 1, here's some duties I perform. Job number 2, here are some duties that I perform. So again, if you wear multiple hats, goofy example, but it might apply to you. Maybe you're doing accounting work part of the time and you're doing computer user support part of the time. Those are two different jobs. So I want to be cautious about that and not take for granted just what your job title might be if there are some additional duties that would maybe not traditionally show up on your job description. Page 2 should be your least favorite page. Page 2 becomes the body of any job description updating. It gives you the opportunity to list out job tasks, functions, services, and it challenges you a little bit to think about the most important duties and less important duties, or the most frequently performed job duties and less frequently performed. If you bounce around, just label them for us to say, hey, daily, here's some tasks that I perform. Checks messages, prioritizes work, greets and screens visitors, routes calls or concerns or complaints to a supervisor or to a lead worker. Very active voice here. If you want to look at your current job descriptions, don't feel like you have to copy and paste from anything because we will have copies of those job descriptions. But if you want to get an idea of the types of language that's used on a job description, it's usually written in a pretty active voice. On my screen here and on the paper copy, nothing magical about 8. You want to tell us about 8 job duties, 6 job duties, 16 job duties. If you pick this up as a Word document, you can tab and it will give you more boxes. There is no limit to the space. If you want to attach additional pages or if you want to attach a marked up job description, that is also perfectly acceptable. We are trying to learn how you spend your time when you're at work. So if that's full-time, part-time, overtime, ideally it would add up to 100%, but fully recognizing that a lot of us are expected to multitask, or we might have foot traffic, phone traffic, smartphone, email traffic, that kind of thing. So the percentage of time, I understand, can be a little bit fluid. If there is such thing as a typical day or a typical week, certainly tell us about that. And then if there are tasks that are performed less frequently, but you think they are important, make sure that they get written down. Knowledge, skills, and sources of information. If we've successfully written down tasks that we perform, think about what you have to know and what you have to be good at in order to perform these job duties. You have to have customer service skills, computer skills, knowledge of accounting practices and principles, knowledge of safety guidelines for setting up a traffic break or a traffic diversion around a work site or a construction site. Are there owner manuals, ordinances, codes, user manuals, anything that you reference on a regular basis? List those on this section as well. So we're on the top of page 3 of the questionnaire. The bottom of page 3, we want your opinion. Let's say that you are promoted and we ask you to sit in on an interview panel to select your replacement for this current job that you hold. What do you look for on someone's resume, job application, that would suggest that they can learn how to perform the job duties that we've been talking about so far? Does your job require a high school diploma and a couple of years of experience? Should your job require, or should somebody new to the position require some trade school, some technical training, maybe a 2-year college degree or a 4-year college degree? Spell that out for us. And then if there's previous work experience required, list that here as well. If you're a lead worker or a senior operator or a supervisor or a manager, give us an idea of how many years of experience you should have in your field or in your profession before you can take on either that senior role or that lead role. Top of page 4, do you have to have any licenses, certifications, or registrations? Can you get those after you've been on the job for a while, or do you show up on day 1 and you have to have that commercial driver's license before you're allowed to operate a piece of equipment? Or you have to have a certain level of utility operator certificate or a pesticide applicator certificate, or maybe you're a professional or registered engineer or a certified planner or architect. List those out there. The middle of page 4, you get any cool toys to play with? Are you operating personal vehicles, city vehicles or equipment, hand tools? Are you utilizing specialized equipment out in the field? List that. And then if someone were to apply for your position, think about what your body goes through in the course of performing your job duties. On a regular basis or on a daily basis, or even occasionally, are you expected to do a lot of lifting, standing, climbing, bending, carrying? Are we using hand tools? Are we doing a lot of 10-key data entry? Are we driving or operating a piece of equipment? Those are tasks that require you to be physically able to do them. What accommodation might we need to make for somebody for compliance with the Americans with Disabilities Act? Physically, what do you have to be capable of to perform your job duties? The top of page 5, describe your work environment. If you're working out of doors, if you work around standing water, hazardous chemicals, infectious disease, moving traffic, any potential for physical harm, list that in this section. Give us an idea of how regular any exposures are that you might have. We switch gears a little bit at the bottom of page 5. When you came to work today, how did you know what to work on? Do you receive very specific work instructions? Is your supervisor working in kind of side by side with you? Maybe you work out in the field and your supervisor works at a different work site. How often do you come together with that supervisor? How is your work reviewed? Are there occasions when instructions are not provided? We switch gears a little bit on the top of page 6. What types of decisions are you expected to make? Are you allowed to purchase materials, order supplies? Do you have a role in budget planning? Are you making significant or difficult decisions out in the field? Is there a potential liability to the city with respect to those decisions that you were expected to make? So list those out there. If you oversee the work of contractors, if you're signing off on work that's being performed by others that aren't city employees, tell us about that. Who do you come into contact with is our last section for some of us. So on the bottom of page 6, do you interact with other employees from other departments around the city? Outside the city, do you come into contact with the state, other local governments, other public safety agencies, vendors, suppliers, contractors, residents? Give us an idea of any interaction that you have with others, both inside and outside the city government. If you choose to fill out this document longhand, make sure that at this point you keep a copy of your work. So if you fill this out in pen and paper, drop it on a copy machine, keep a copy for yourself. Sign and date. If you fill it out as a group, you can put everybody's signature on there. If you are a leader of others, or if you are responsible for the work being performed by others, whether it's full-time, part-time, student workers, interns, contractors, vendors, that kind of thing, who and how many people are you responsible for? If you're responsible for a big contract, list the amount that contract is for in dollar terms. If you have responsibility for others, tell us about that. Are you doing their training? Are you signing off on their work schedule, approving their time off requests? Are you part of the hiring process, a performance review process? If this doesn't apply to you, you can leave this page blank or draw a line through it. And then the last page, page 8, will be the only spot that anybody else could write on your questionnaire. We are not looking for supervisors and managers to change what you put on the questionnaire, but we are making sure that you did not forget something. Usually the errors on these documents are errors of omission. What I mean by that is maybe tasks that we perform less frequently, but are important and belong on the job description. We want to make sure that your job description gets credit for those tasks. So a couple of reminders here. Again, you can work on these with your coworkers. Talk to your supervisors, talk to your managers, so you can kind of set a little bit of work time aside to work on these. My challenge, I think, to everybody would be to try and keep it to an hour or 2 and not more than 2 hours. November 29th. So end of November, and then work with your managers, department heads. If you need to borrow a little bit more time, they will have until December 10th. So November 29th and December 10th are our big kind of timelines and deadlines. Overall, we should have study results in the spring. We will do our best to communicate all of the study findings and recommendations. We can make available copies of the report. You can go visit those in Human Resources. Our firm will work pretty independently of city leadership. There'll be some critical decisions early on, so we'll have a chance to visit with City Council about the survey. Get to hear my dogs in the background, so I apologize for that. But I really look forward to everybody's input. I want to thank you all certainly for filling out the questionnaire, but also reviewing the video. And we hope to see everybody in person just as soon as we can. Thanks much.